Well, Greg, it happened and it happened again. A bombshell report on the IRS targeting of conservative groups for extra scrutiny. An unnamed agent telling lawmakers that the IRS is still targeting Tea Party groups, despite those promises 6 weeks ago that the IRS had suspended its list of groups that should face extra screening. And if this report is true, the question is, how can an agency like the IRS still be doing what it's under investigation for doing? Alan Colmes, the host of The Alan Colmes Show, and Brad Blakeman, a former deputy assistant to President George W. Bush. Guys, great to have you here on Friday.
Hi.
Good to see you. First, Brad, I want to ask you this. You know, if it is true, we've reported a lot that it happened. We've reported that it went beyond the Cincinnati office, but we haven't been able to report with certainty that it stopped. How surprised are you?
I'm not surprised. The IRS is clearly out of control. The inmates are running the asylum. If the IRS is so big and unwielding that they cannot be controlled, we got a real problem. And the fact is, the FBI and the Justice Department have yet to interview the aggrieved parties who were admittedly targeted by the IRS for their political beliefs.
And what do you mean? They've contacted and asked to be interviewed and they haven't been?
They have not been interviewed. As a matter of fact, Jay Sekulow came on and they're waiting patiently and have been waiting for somebody to contact them.
But they haven't talked to
anybody?
Have not
talked to anybody. Now, fish rots from the head. The president told us that this cannot stand. What has he done? He runs the Justice Department. He supervises the FBI. And he runs the IRS. You got to admit, Alan,
I don't have to admit
it's not an independent organization.
Excuse me. Well, thank you for telling me what I should admit or not admit. This particular agent, unnamed, we don't know who it is. And by the way, he actually
Ways and Means, the
we
House
don't know
Ways
who it
and
is.
Means Committee.
We know that Dave Camp on the Ways and Means Committee, who's a Republican, who's a partisan. We know that Darrell Issa has run a partisan investigation. And by the way, this particular agent, who's unnamed, in the transcript I read, never actually said that we are still targeting conservative groups. What he said was, I've been given no direction, and that would still highlight such a group if it came my way. He never specifically said we are still targeting conservative groups. So we don't know the answer to that question. This is a presumption which we've not been verified.
But I do want to ask you this, because there has been one interpretation at least reported that it's true they're not looking with that extra scrutiny that they did to find Tea Party and other conservative organizations, but they're giving it what they're calling a second screening.
You know what the real scandal
is?
The real scandal is Darrell Issa. He's the real scandal.
What is that second look? Why?
There is no second look. This is a scandal by Darrell Issa, who, when he first released information, only wanted certain information released, refused to release information, only when the ranking member of the committee came forward and said, I'm going to release all information.
But are you shooting the messenger? You're mentioning Darrell Issa. What is your opinion of the IRS?
Darrell Issa is not a messenger. He's a partisan who said from the very beginning of the Obama administration, I wish I could spend 40 hours a week investigating this administration. Yeah. He's not a messenger. He's a prosecutor.
Hours in the day to investigate this
That's
administration.
ridiculous. You know,
were they talking about the IRS, Benghazi?
Well, let's stick. We did the phony scandal terminology. We've talked a lot about this, but this particular one, if it went further than what was already reported, and in the House Ways and Means, somebody gave an IRS employee sworn testimony that they're still even thinking about doing it, but actually they are giving a second look.
If we can say if anything.
But look, you have a IRS agent who is under oath.
Name him.
This is being.
We don't even know who it is.
Being reported. But getting back to your point on Darrell Issa.
Unnamed source.
Thank God for Darrell Issa, because if it wasn't for Darrell Issa, none of the truths that we know to be truths today
would come out. Why did Darrell Issa only allow partial information to come out?
That the president's allowed, who admitted doing wrong, to either retire or
Brad, I got a question for you.
Or take the fifth.
Why did Darrell Issa only want information about conservative groups being targeted coming out?
Because there was no evidence. There was no evidence of progressives being targeted.
Withheld that the word progressives were coming out as well.
There have been reports.
He actually withheld that information.
There have been reports, Alan. Or let me ask you: have there been reports, and maybe even some numbers affiliated with the number of non-conservative groups that were targeted for other reasons?
I will tell you that we know that there were more conservative groups that were targeted, and here's the reason why. It was at the time that the Tea Party groups were being formed. It was at the time that they were applying to get tax-exempt status. And so because of what was happening at that time, yes, more Tea Party groups and progressive groups were being targeted. But he tried to withhold. In fact, he did withhold information.
Final answer.
You know what? Let me tell you why they were.
I'm going to give Alan the last word.
Okay, but let me just say this. Let me just tell you why they were targeted. It's because in 2010, the President of the United States went before the press and said these groups are un-American.
There's no
and he also
Alan,
said
There's
Final
no,
comment.
there's, no there's no evidence this goes up to the president. None whatsoever. Provide some if you got it.
Okay, on that note, looking for answers. Thanks, guys,
Absolutely.
so much. Fair and Balanced, Brad Blakeman and Alan Colmes. Good to see you.